just get smashed by a rock. Leg starts bleeding, blood is just pouring out of the wetsuit. Bears, wolves, everything was just coming to look. They can smell the blood. You are an ice cream van. You are advertising yourself to all of the wildlife down the Yukon. I ended up with hypothermia, cellulitis. You know, it gets in your lymph nodes, can be fatal.
Yeah.
I thought everything was going like really well. And then just everything kind of went dark. And I just remember waking up in the hospital and I just went, oh, it's not gone well, has it? And they were like, no, Ross. I think when all is said and done and I'm 80 years old, sitting there in my budgie smugglers, I just want to be like, here's a list of accolades, but the stories attached to them. Yeah. I just want to be rich in stories.
The Bad and the Beast podcast with Eddie Hall.
Today we have a very special guest in the studio. He can make a solid claim to be the world's fittest man, having completed some of the most insane feats of human endurance ever attempted. He swam around Great Britain, breaking records along the way, completed a marathon towing a mini, and a triathlon carrying a tree. He's battled jellyfish, hypothermia, heat stroke, and pushed through the most difficult challenges imaginable. He's done it all with a smile on his face. Welcome to the Beast Podcast, Ross Edgley.
That sounds awesome when you say it like that. What an intro.
For those that don't know who Ross Edgley is, just give me a quick Google. But just to quickly describe him as a personality, it's like a Labrador that's found a stash of cocaine. That's Ross Edgley.
You said this on a video once, and now it's stuck.
Yeah,
that's all I
because it perfectly describes you. Just a Labrador that can't keep still, can't shut up, and just keeps doing these ridiculous things and energy just off the scale. I love it. Absolutely. I'm just describing the way you are. I love it though.
Well, I was just saying, this feels very different from the cold lakes and obstacle courses and things that we usually do. This is quite civilized.
Yeah, this is nice indoor, bit of heating. Yeah, we're not like inverting penises, jumping in frozen lakes. This is much more comfortable.
It's true. I like it.
Well, listen, I want to get stuck in first. So I always ask a guest to bring me something in, something that really means a lot to them, something that's tells a story. What have you got for me? I like to call it a little piece of the beast.
All right, okay, I was struggling a little bit.
Guess what it is first?
You probably could guess.
Okay, I'm going to guess that it's going to be like half of a toe that's like frozen off.
I feel it's going to be disappointing now based on that. No, it's not a body part. Do you want another clue?
It's not a body part.
No.
Because my second guess was going to be the snake skin from your tongue. Okay.
I ended up eating that, by the way.
Cheesecake.
Oh, no, but that would have been good, right?
Yeah, because I know you love cheesecake.
Oh, that would have been good. I feel that this is going to be a disappointment now.
It probably is. Come on then, bring it out. What have we got?
Okay, basically, you get given one of these. You get given one of these when you swim around Great Britain. Take a peek at that.
Wow.
It's not quite your world's strongest man trophy.
Awesome.
And then you get your name down it. Nice. All you have to do is swim around Great Britain. They give you one.
First person to swim around mainland Great Britain. Who gave you this?
Oh, I don't actually know. But as a joke, I was saying when I was swimming around, I was like, I'd love a trident. And then apparently these were the guys who made all the props for like Lord of the Rings and everything.
Right, okay.
And they just rung them up and went, look, we need a trident. And then that was waiting for me on the beach when I got back at Margate.
Hey, this is amazing. Like, do you not feel like Mermaid's dad? What's his name?
It's like Poseidon.
Poseidon, yeah. Was it Zeus? No, that's not.
He's in the sky.
That's the sky. What's the mermaid? Little Mermaid's dad.
I don't know.
Or is it not that? Aquaman.
Yeah.
That's probably more.
Yeah, but just
more
like
us.
a really short and really like bad version, like a Poundland Aquaman.
Well, yeah. It's made out of like rubber or something.
It's not great.
Hey, for those that can't see, this is literally like. You must have seen, everyone's seen The Little Mermaid. And you've got, I don't know his name. Neptune, thank you very much.
Yes.
We've got Little Mermaid's dad, Neptune, and he always swims about with his big massive fin and this big like trident that looks like it could...
That's it. It's just a giant fork, isn't it?
It is literally a giant fork.
I don't know what its use is.
It looks like it's meant to like stick thunder or something, I don't know. God knows.
We need to Google this later. What is a trident actually used for?
What the fuck is a trident?
what are the functionality?
But it looks awesome. That's the main thing.
Thank you. I got some weird looks walking through Stoke-on-Trent with that.
Oh, did you? Right, okay. I can imagine. You're probably not that weird, if I'm being honest. I mean, they're probably used to shit like this. Like
Really?
people walk down the street with machetes and all sorts.
All
around
right,
here,
no one would
yeah.
have batted an eyelid.
No, I tried. It's pretty low key, really.
Inconspicuous.
So this trident, it literally says on it, first person to swim around mainland Great Britain. So this is presented to you for swimming around Great Britain.
Yeah.
Which was, how many miles was that?
Yeah.
17?
1,780 miles. Yeah. 157 days.
1,780 miles. And how many? 157 days, did you say?
157 days, that one.
Talk
Yeah.
me through that, man, because
Yeah.
that is just insane. Like 157 days. So you didn't touch land
No, yeah, it didn't seem right to do
for
that.
157 days.
Yeah, yeah. And then, like I said, first steps back on land, this is what was waiting for me. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
But it's been weird because that was nice. But I remember saying to you ages ago, because the GB swim was amazing. I think that was 2018.
Yeah.
And a lot of people said, Ross, just chill out, retire, take your trident and just go and eat cheesecake and get fat. And I was like, no, I could do that. I definitely could do that. But I wanted to be basically one of the first people, or actually the first person in history to have the world's longest non-stop swim and then a stage swim. So this one was a stage swim.
Yeah, because 1,790 whatever miles isn't long enough.
No. But do you know what? You'll relate to this because it's like that was almost, you had the world's strongest man, but then you had the deadlift.
Yes.
But you also broke the deadlift twice. Was it 465 at the Arnold?
Yeah. No, 465 on the day, and then on the same day did the 500.
Yes.
I broke it twice in the same day.
Yeah, but everyone was like, "You're done, just chill." But you were like, "No, I've got more in the tank." And I think that's kind of what I always said when people said your GB swim was your 500 deadlift, Ross.
Yes.
And I went, I think it might have been my 465.
Okay.
Because we've got some other swims planned, some more tridents to get.
So you swam around Great Britain 157 days. I mean, the complications that you had from that were just obscene. But you thought, no, fuck it, that's not enough. I've got to torture myself even more.
Yes.
Let's do something better, harder, just more ridiculous.
This is it, yes. So then, fast forward, had two failed swims, actually. One was in Loch Ness. So we were swimming for like 56 hours, I think. I ended up with hypothermia, cellulitis, which is kind of a skin infection.
Yeah.
It gets in your lymph nodes, can be fatal.
Yeah.
To this day, I thought everything was going like really well. I was looking at my split times. I was like, this is going great. And then just everything kind of went dark. And I just remember waking up in the hospital and seeing my mum and my girlfriend, and I just went, "Oh, it's not gone well, has it?" And they were like, "No, Ross."
Well, mate, usually when you wake up in a hospital, 99 times out of 100, it's not gone well.
I looked around, there was no trident. I was like, oh no. So that didn't go too well. So I was like, okay, fine. Right. It was too cold and I got hypothermia, like I said. So I was like, right, fast forward next year. And I went to Lake Tresemino in Italy. So then I tried to do it in there where it was a lot warmer. Only problem was we got hit with an anti-cyclone. So like the weather was getting up to like 40, 50 degrees. It was crazy. The water temperature was getting up to about 37 in the shallows.
Wow. So it went from being too cold to too hot.
Yeah. But you'll understand this. We had everything booked. So we had camera crews, and also because of the paperwork in Italy, they said you can swim in this lake, but it has to be on this day. So I turned around, I was like, yeah.
Hottest day of the year by chance.
Exactly. I turned around, I was like, but there's a heat wave. And they were like, sorry, that's when your permit is.
Wow.
So I don't often sort of talk about this, but wading into the water that day, it was a jacuzzi. Like I knew it was like destined to fail. Do you know what I mean? You're just like, well, this isn't going to go well. And it didn't. Again, woke up, girlfriend at the end of the hospital bed. I was like, it's not gone well. No. And I got hypothermia, different to hypothermia.
Where you couldn't cool down.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So I got that and really bad rhabdo as well.
What the fuck is rhabdo?
You look at me like it's a sexually transmitted disease.
That's what it sounds like. It sounds like some kind of dog disease. What is it?
It's just essentially if you train too hard, like just a period of complete exertion, your muscles essentially liquefy and that ends up in your bloodstream. And now that's okay to a certain extent. You have something called creatine kinase, which is an enzyme. And if that's in your blood, they'll go, okay, depending on how bad that is, how elevated it is, will show how much your muscle's breaking down. And your body can cope with it to a certain extent, and the liver and kidneys, your internal organs will try to process that. They'll filter it out because there's basically, if your muscles liquefy and put things into your bloodstream, there's things in your bloodstream you don't want in there. And at a certain point, basically, your kidneys will just go, no, like, you're you're having a laugh now, Ross. Like, this is too much.
So you overloaded your liver and kidneys, basically.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Yeah,
Is that too much creatine kinase?
Yeah, creatine kinase. Yeah. Or kinase, yeah. And so it was that with hypothermia, heat stroke.
Yeah, wow, okay.
But what was really interesting, and my girlfriend's going to hate me for saying this, but on both occasions, they were like, this is crazy. We've never seen like creatine kinase this high before. You're going to be in for months. Like, this is going to take you ages to recover. But what was really weird is literally by day 2, I was like, I honestly I'm good to go. Yeah. And so they looked, and it basically led to a bunch of studies that we're doing at the moment where I had an MRI scan, and they just said, why is it that Ross is able to just put his body through this and still walk out? And this is what, and I know we've spoke about this before with yourself, and sort of just genetic reasons why you are what you are. And it was really weird how they basically looked at an MRI scan. They had me in and they said, like, Ross, we don't want you to panic. And I was like, that's not good news. And they said, but you see how on this, your bone marrow is glowing. And I said, right. And they said, we only ever see this in 2 types of people. Newborn babies, because they're growing, they've got so much to sort of regenerate, regrow, and everything like this. And also people with cancer, because obviously their body has so much to basically try to cope with. Now, we've tested you, it's neither of those, it's not cancer, and you're not a newborn baby. But it's weird how, because of the demands...
It's very observant of them to actually say those words.
Thank you, doctor.
Yeah. Okay.
They said it's kind of partly nature, partly nurture, because of the stress that you're putting your body through. Your body's having to adapt, and the only form of recovery for you, because you're not taking a rest day, is your body's going, right, bone marrow, you just need to be hyperactive just to produce like more stem cells, immune cells, everything to cope. So it was really interesting that from that, and again, my girlfriend will hate me saying this, but I was like, so you're saying I'm indestructible? Is what I'm saying. And they were like, no, that's not it. But then with all of that kind of knowledge, we decided to go to the Yukon River. And that's when we finally got the record for the non-stop swim.
And what was that record?
So that was the world's longest non-stop river swim.
As in non-stop, as in you didn't stop, you didn't touch land, you didn't touch a boat, you didn't stop to have a spag ball, or did you?
No,
I can imagine you actually having a spag ball while you're swimming. So continuous, no sleep, just how many hours?
Yeah. So in total, the total expedition to get to the point and everything, everybody was awake for up to 70 hours. I was in the water for 57 to 60.
Fuck my life. That is like, if I get a late night, you know what I mean? Like, I get to bed at like 10 and, I'm up at 5 because one of the kids has woke me up. I'm fucked. Like, seriously, I'm written off for like a fucking week. Like, fucked.
Yeah.
You stayed up for 70 hours.
Yeah, so that's so the rules. Yeah, you can't touch land.
Who set these rules? Are these just rules that you made up?
No. So World Open Water Swimming Association, they're the governing body, and the rule, you can't touch land. No one can touch you. You can eat. You can tread water. So people will just throw bananas overboard. I'll just smash those.
Like the performing monkey.
Exactly. Exactly. But it's so interesting because I think, with the previous failures, it was so nice knowing like just how far you could push it. And actually, further to that point, I think what's so interesting is, again, with a lot of scientists that we're talking to, they talk about central governor theory or psychobiological model of fatigue, where basically so often the brain is a hypochondriac. So if you're running, if you're swimming, if you're weightlifting, the brain's basically going, let's take running for an example. If me and you went for a run, and I said, let's go and run a marathon today.
Very unlikely. I'll just say that right now. That is.
But in theory, in a bit,
yeah. In a fucking distant galaxy, 200 million light years away, me and you are doing a marathon.
Right.
Okay, let's continue.
26.2 miles. And at 17 miles, you turn to me, you go, Ross, oh my God, like my legs are on fire, my lungs are going to explode. And this is because basically the brain, being a hypochondriac, is picking up all of these biological signals. It's like you're depleted of muscle glycogen, you're overheating, you're depleted of electrolytes, all of these things. And so you're like, I cannot go on. This is ridiculous. But then all of a sudden we get to 25 miles. You see Alex, see Max, you see the kids, everyone's cheering you on. And then you goose step and you sprint to the end. It's like, hang on, what happened there? Because you said you were done at 17 miles when you hit the wall. And it's this idea, this psychobiological model of fatigue, saying what the brain does is it pulls the physiological handbrake to stop you going to complete failure. So you slow down or stop. And I think what's so interesting that with the Yukon, so many times that came up, whereas I was like, no, push past. You're being a hypochondriac, talking to my brain. You're being a hypochondriac, we can push through this, we can push through. Previously, I'd done that, Loch Ness and Tresemmino.
And woke up in hospital.
Yeah. So the doctors were saying, and also sports scientists were going, Ross, ordinarily we would say you're far more powerful than your own mind allows you to believe and push through. But what was interesting, and all jokes aside, they were saying, Ross, I think with you, one thing that you have to learn is you keep on like, rather than pulling the physiological handbrake, you just go, no. Just like accelerate. You keep pushing through. And at some point, the body just goes, right, the brain's not listening. We just need to shut him down because he just keeps going. So it was going into the Yukon. It was really interesting going, I'm going to have an amazing team around me. We had a brilliant doctor, Dr. Tom. He was incredible, very good friend of mine. My girlfriend, Hester, who you know very well. And I was like, look, I'm just going to do exactly the same, but I'm going to outsource common sense and you be the safety net. So when I'm just dribbling and not making much sense, but I'm probably going to go to that place. Okay. And they were like, okay, cool, we'll look after you.
Wow.
And I think that was what was so interesting, because going back to talking about with strength, it's exactly the same. Then I know you spoke about like the 500 kilo deadlift and you're like, oh, I'm going to die or it's coming off the floor.
Yeah.
They're the only two options. And you had to turn around to everyone else and go, just so you're aware, this is the mindset. Which is hard for some people to understand.
Yeah. I call it that. I like that, what you just described there. I call it the inner bitch. That inner bitch, that inner bitch that says, you can't do this, you shouldn't be doing this. Oh, that's a bit dangerous. And that's the biggest stumbling block for the human race, the inner bitch. And it almost daily, I have that conversation, that inner bitch, to something like training. I was fight training this morning and I kicked my coach's elbow and stumped my toe. I'm fucking kit, like I can't. And I don't open my mouth because I know my coach would be like, fucking man up, you pussy. And that's what I should be saying to my inner bitch. And that's, before he said it was like, fuck off. And I said it to myself, man up, you pussy.
Yeah.
And that's what you've got to be when you're going through those training sessions, when you're about to pass out and you've got whatever else going on. You've got to tell that inner bitch to fucking shut up sometimes.
It's so true.
Yeah. It's fascinating. Right. You have that conversation, I'd imagine, continuously.
Yeah.
Every stroke, every breath you take, you're having that conversation with yourself.
But I love what you said there, because irrespective of your sport, that's the common denominator. And I always find the best athletes in the world, irrespective of your sport, are those who can, whether it's your inner bitch, psychobiological model of fatigue, central governor theory, or the Navy SEALs, when they say, when you are completely done, you're only at 40%. It's the same thing. Everyone's describing the same thing there.
Yeah.
So it's like, use whichever one resonates with you. But I love what you said, because we were just talking off air, weren't we, about Rico.
Rico Verhoeven.
And this, for me, I was like, wow, because you train with so many people across different sports, but you said he's a different breed.
Yeah, I mean, geez, like I spent a day with Rico Verhoeven. He's the world kickboxing champion, for those that don't know. And he's been the world champion for, I think, 13 years, which is fucking insane. Number one in kickboxing for 13 years. And it's easy from the outside, but before I met him, I was like, oh, it's just good genetics. He's got the limbs, he's got that agility. When you go and train with him, fuck my life. Fuck.
Genuinely, yeah.
Oh, man. That is the hardest training session I've ever had in my existence. He trains so hard. It was to the point where I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you putting yourself through this every day? And you're asking these questions, and he's like, I love to punish myself. He eats nothing but chicken and rice.
Wow.
And I'm like, why don't I just have a bit of ketchup on there? Nope. So because I want to punish myself. So when I get that fight and I can stand there and I can be like, give it my all and punish myself so much, I deserve to win this fight. And then afterwards I'll go and have a McDonald's Big Mac and whatever. But yeah, jeez.
Because you were saying as well, just to put that into perspective, you were talking about looking at his heart rate, and he was redlining at 190, you were saying. And he held that. So going back to that psychobiological model of fatigue, everything in Rico's head would have been going, your heart rate's too high, you're overheating, but he will just push through.
Yeah. It was nuts, mate. And I say in between the rounds, he would lie down in between his rounds, right? So he'd do 3 minutes maximum, get his heart rate up to 190. And he'd lie down, he'd just close his eyes and, what the fuck are you doing? You can't do this in between a fight, but I think mentally he does. And I felt his heart rate, so I put 2 fingers on his neck. And I felt his heart rate. And that when that first minute has started, it's like, you're like, fucking hell. Within 20 seconds, it was under 100 beats per minute. And I'm feeling that for myself. And I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, how the fuck is he doing this? It's just insane.
So his mastery of fight or flight, you know, that heart rate variability, that and for people sort of listening, there's this idea of like your sympathetic nervous system is fight or flight. You know, so when you lifted 500 kilos, it was just adrenaline. Everything is going coursing through your veins. It's all parasympathetic. It's fight or flight.
Yeah.
To the point where you were telling me you hypnotized yourself as well.
Yeah.
But then equally after that, it's your ability to switch on your parasympathetic nervous system, which is just relaxation, recovery.
Yeah, which is nuts. Like I couldn't envision me doing a 500 kilo deadlift, having an hour's rest, and then doing it again. I was done. You know what I mean? Like my central nervous system was fried. Me myself just mentally fried. I say that was months and months and months of hard work put into the 2 seconds of madness.
Yeah.
And yeah, it destroyed me. And but being able, I couldn't have done that lift and then right back in the room.
Yeah.
It took me like 3-4 hours to get my heart rate down, get my blood pressure down. But yeah, that Rico, just 20 seconds, he's back in the room.
Yeah, that's amazing. Nuts. Coming from you when you say, you know, he's a different breed. That's really quite a compliment on, is it? Wow.
Yeah, massive. Yeah, it's a bit like you. You're swimming, and I want to get back onto this. Like you're swimming around the UK and the Yukon swim. I want to talk about your injuries and and the things that happened to you, which were just surreal. Like we'll hopefully put some things on the screen right now, but like. One of the things that really stood out for me, and I'm sorry to bring it up, or maybe a bit conscious of it, but was your teeth and your mouth and like the things it did to you.
Yeah.
Like it made your teeth go crooked, it changed the colour.
Yeah, it was bad. Yeah. I think people don't understand that as well, because essentially I think with the swim around Great Britain and also the Yukon, as soon as you start, it's almost starting the catabolic degradation of the body. You know, there's no two ways about it. It's just like everything is now breaking down. You know, from, like I said, my tongue, like ligaments, tendons, muscle atrophy, everything. So you're basically wondering, like, how long can you keep that at bay? You know, the atrophy, the degradation of the body. And so it actually becomes a little bit less about fitness. I think that's what's really interesting. A lot of people, amazing swimmers, will say to me, "Oh, Ross, you know, are you bilaterally breathing? Is it a 2-beat leg kick, a 6?" And I'm just like, look, when you are 70 days in, your tongue's falling off, you got jellyfish on your face, and you have soiled yourself in your wetsuit. No one cares if it's a 2-beat leg. Do you know? It's survival, and I think speaking to friends of mine in the military, that's why I'm so grateful to friends in the military, because sometimes they can offer more advice than someone who's an athlete. It's so interesting that the Royal Marines always told me, you know, Ross, you're an athlete, so you're used to performing at your best when you feel at your best. We're Royal Marines, we're used to performing at our best when we feel at our worst. And that resonated with me so much. And I think people listening as well, you know, whether you're doing MMA, you're sitting in your corner, 5th round, it's like, right, you've got to perform at your best now when you feel at your worst. You know, and I think that's one thing that, looking ahead for other swims now, I've started to think less as an athlete and more as an adventurer, essentially. Yeah.
Well, you have to. Jesus.
yeah. Just knowing it's not going to be over quickly. And even actually, to that point, it's kind of like things that will come up. Like on the Yukon, for instance, I'd swum around Great Britain, 157 days. So I was like, the Yukon River in Canada can't throw anything at me that I've not seen before. Like, I've been there, I've done it. This is fine. You know, so we set off. It was the one thing that really sort of, I didn't see coming, first of all, was the Whitewater Rapids. Swimming through those, the best way I can describe it is just imagine the most jagged rock you can find and then just run up to it and knee it as hard as you can. So that happened, I want to say 24 hours in. So you're now sleep deprived. That inner bitch is really speaking to you. And then all of a sudden you just get smashed by a rock. Leg starts bleeding. No one can touch me. I can't touch land. So I sort of, on my back, I'm sort of swimming backstroke. I lift my leg out of the water. And as I do, blood is just pouring out of the wetsuit. And I was like, oh God, that's not good. I've still got like another 300 kilometers to go, another 30 hours. But what was so interesting after that is it was literally like clockwork that bears, wolves, everything was just coming to look and see. And I said, what's going on, to the guys on the boat? And they said, Ross, like they can smell the blood. You are an ice cream van. You are advertising yourself to all of the wildlife down the Yukon. So that was one thing that I hadn't considered, bears. So all of a sudden I'm turning to the guys and they were amazing. The team in Canada, just like big, amazing, like Canadian men. And I remember I turned to Brian, one of the guys, and I said, Brian, I said, like, am I okay? Look, I'm bleeding, I'm losing blood. Bears, black bears. He goes, oh, black bears are kind of a bit skittish. So they look at you, they're scavengers. So they're looking at you kind of going, oh, he's not a salmon and he's not a bear. And he's still kind of swimming, so he's not dead yet. So I'm not going to check him out. Whereas a grizzly will just look at you and just be like, am I hungry? I will mess you up as you're swimming past.
Right, okay.
Brian just turns to me and he just like brings out this, like the biggest handgun I've ever seen. And I just went, am I okay? And he goes, Ross, if it pays too much attention to you, it'll end up in my freezer. I was like, amazing.
Nice.
I'm just going to swim next to you, Brian. So it was things like that came from the Yukon that we just didn't have in the GB swim.
Yeah, well, I hope not. I hope not.
lack of bears around Cornwall.
I want to talk about your tongue. We've got it on the screen here. Is this?
No.
When was this picture taken?
Honestly, that was pretty early, I reckon. So that was probably like 40 days in.
That doesn't look too bad.
No,
I know it got a lot worse than that.
Got a lot worse. Yeah. What was interesting, I mean, if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, Eddie or anyone listening, coconut oil.
Really?
Because the salt water like takes all the moisture out and that's when it starts falling apart. But basically, like in 3-hour intervals, just constantly go and swill coconut oil.
Right, okay. Just to keep it lubricated.
Just lubricated, yeah, lubricated.
Because I remember seeing clips of you actually peeling bits of skin off your tongue.
Yeah.
And then what was look at that, that's what resonates with me, that hand. You see that hand?
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
See, was that from the Yukon?
Yeah, no, I think it was. Yeah, that was the Yukon. Yeah.
So I remember you put that on the internet and I thought that was a dead person's hand. Seriously, I was like, why are they putting a dead guy's hand on the internet?
That's what they said. Again, shout out to the guys in the Yukon. They were incredible.
Decomposing.
Yeah, they said that. When we got to the hospital, they went, this is amazing. We've never seen a hand or foot that colour on a living person.
A living person.
And they were like, can we start taking pictures for medical journals? I was like, yeah, knock yourself out.
Man, it's nuts. It's nuts. And then what was the other thing? It was like the swimsuit was cutting into your flesh.
Oh, that was bad.
So if you see, look at that. Fucking hell.
Yeah, that is raw.
How deep was that?
It was weird, because it's like, the only way I can describe it is sandpaper. So for 6 hours, like knowing that you've got a wound like that, but just getting
and salt getting in it.
Yeah.
I mean, that looks like about an inch deep into your flesh. It's like where the wetsuit's just sat on top of your neck and someone's rubbed it left to right as hard as they can for like 4 hours.
Yeah, the reason it got so bad like that as well, though, that was quite early on in the swim. And sometimes we were going through the shipping lanes, going through Dover.
Yeah.
So I couldn't stop. So when people go, why didn't you stop and get that treated? It's like, no, you can't. Like
a little dab of Vaseline would have been perfect on that.
Yeah, exactly.
But you couldn't, couldn't stop.
So it's interesting how when people look at those wounds, it's hard to explain that like you can't stop when you're swimming through the Corryvreckan, a giant whirlpool in Scotland. You can't stop when we were speaking to a lot of the Coast Guards and we say, look, there's a guy swimming around Great Britain, can we have safe passage across Dover? And they'll be like, look, as long as he swims now hard for 4 hours to get across, we'll allow him. And it was really weird as well, because so often I was almost treated like a vessel. So they'd ask me like, how many knots is he holding? And you'd have to tell them so they could actually like manage the safe passage. So yeah, that's why it was so bad, because so often we were just swimming in conditions where there was no option. You couldn't stop. You couldn't stop to be treated.
Is there any other injuries that you haven't talked about before?
Yukon, 4 hours in, went to the toilet. I had a toilet flap fitted on the back of the wetsuit. So it was
really?
Yeah. So I'm sort of like, if you imagine here and you can just like reach around then unzip and almost
piss and shit and carry on.
Yeah. I mean, the pissing isn't too much of an issue. You can just do that in the wetsuit. And if anything,
everyone who's ever worn a wetsuit in their life has pissed in a wetsuit.
Exactly. And it just warms you up.
It's lovely.
Yeah, so you don't mind piss in your wetsuit. If anything, it serves a function.
Shit would be a bit different. Yeah,
well, this is exactly my issue, Eddie.
Did you have to do any like experimentation before we fitted
Yeah,
this
I
zip?
did.
Or?
No, I did, and it was working. But then on the Yukon, I don't know. We had a new wetsuit, and it was amazing. It worked, but to this day, I don't know if my bumhole is in the wrong place or the zip is in the wrong place. Because when I unzipped it, I then went to the toilet, and it just didn't come out of the zip at all.
Oh, wow.
And so then, what was worse? I'm so sorry for people listening. What was worse then is it kind of was like up my back. This was 4 hours in. Bearing in mind the swim was 60 hours, so that means. For 2 days in the sun. It was also a black wetsuit as well. Just imagine slow roasting.
Shit. Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's a shame there's no pictures of that.
That's.
I don't need one actually. I just changed my daughter's nappy this morning, and that was all healed.
That was exactly it. So there you go. Your daughter. Imagine that in a nappy, but leave it out in the sun for 2 days.
Yeah.
That was how bad it was. And then even at the end, so when people were concerned about my hands, I was more concerned about the state.
The shit sting up your back.
Genuinely.
I bet it got to a point it actually started stinging.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But I have no idea why she's still with me, but my girlfriend Hester was there. And I remember I just looked at her, I was like, babe, I'm so sorry. And she's just like laughing her head off. And then the Canadians as well, these like just amazing, like burly Canadian men would like I said, guys, there's no polite way to say this. I sawed myself and it's been in here for 2 days. And they went, Ross, don't worry. We gut bears, we kill wolves. We've seen it all. And I was like, thank you guys. That's so sweet of you. They cut the wetsuit and then they just went, oh God, we're out. And they left me. So I was just there with a flannel around my gentlemanly parts.
Funnily reminds me of I did a program for Channel 5 called Celebs in Solitary, where they locked me in a container for 5 days with no sunlight. And I was on marine rations. So you know how bad marine rations are. So 10-year-old curry and full breakfast that have been in packets for 4 years. Anyway, at the end, before they'd release you, a psychologist had to come in and evaluate you because it's like traumatic, not seeing daylight for 5 days. And the smell, because he had a toilet in the room that was contained, and I was shitting. Like every breath was like, it was like I was shitting I could have shit for England. Like it was fucking unreal.
And the psychologist had to come in.
And I'll never forget this for as long as I live. This psychologist walked in, lovely lady, and her face screwed up like she'd have swallowed a wasp.
Was she polite? Did she say anything?
Didn't say a word. But I knew what she was thinking. And we just sat there and had this like conversation about my mental health. And all the time she was just like,
eyes watering.
Fuck me, I felt so sorry for I almost to the point I nearly said I'm so sorry about the smell, but I thought I don't want to bring it up.
That was just this giant elephant in the room that you both.
Yeah, I'm glad
elephant in the room.
Finally out. I want to apologise to that psychologist if you're watching at last, because that was fucking bad. I fully apologise.
But this is it. There's so many things like this that. And I think this is what's been amazing on social media is sharing stories like this. You have so many like Ironman athletes who just go, oh yeah, Ross, like I've been on the cycle part of an Ironman and I've pissed myself because someone was sort of too close behind me. I thought, right, get a load of this. And I was just like, oh, okay.
I'm pissed on someone.
I'm just pissed on them.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's so me. I would do that. I would literally go in front of someone and piss myself. No, because then the wheels would spray it up in the face. That's perfect.
No,
it's
I know.
The perfect crime. It is. That's great.
But this is
that's
it.
Good.
But it's amazing how I think sharing stories like this, they're so often not spoken about. But when I'm not saying everyone does it. Not everybody swims for 60 hours and shits themselves in the West. But people can sort of like go, oh, there's no, I don't want to say a human element, but you know what I mean? A relatable. Probably not that relatable.
In a way. And we've all changed the kids' nappy, I think.
Exactly. Exactly.
Some way relatable.
Yeah, there's stuff. Basically, I think for all of the tridents and the records and everything like that, there's so many stories that people probably wouldn't go through to get there. So when people go, oh my God, it's amazing, the world's longest non-stop swim. I'm like, yeah, but to do it, sleep deprivation, bears, chafing, holy shaving, tongue fall off, saw yourself in your wetsuit.
Yeah.
If you do all of that, the rest is easy.
I know there's a picture of you of a jellyfish on your face, stuck to your face?
Yeah. I think my record was honestly about 32 times in a 6-hour tide.
32 times what?
stung by jellyfish.
32 times. You were stung.
Yeah.
And the only bits were exposed were your hands, feet, and face.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So what's weird about that is after a certain point, it stops hurting, but the toxins start attacking your lymph nodes. So you just start scratching under your armpits and your groin. And it's weird how, yeah, look. So we made that mask in the end, which didn't work very well.
So this is an anti-jellyfish mask.
I actually got really accustomed to that, so I'd forget that I'd have it on, and then sometimes when we were going like
fuck
past,
do you forget you had
no,
that
no,
on?
genuinely, and then we'd go past like in Cornwall, and there'd be like some kids would be going past on a school trip, and they'll be like, "Look, kids, there's a man over there, and he's trying to swim out," and I would forget, so I'd be like going, "Hello, kids," with that scary mask.
Just for those that are listening, he's lit this mask. It looks like, I don't know, it looks like an alien with two tiny little nostrils where his nose go, and then this hole which just perfectly resembles where you'd put your penis. Like
With retrospect, I understand it looks weird now.
It's perfectly shaped for a top. That is,
No,
that is
but now,
100%. Whoever designed that took the piss out of you.
Well, look, with retrospect, sitting here now in Stoke and
What the fuck is this? So now we've got Rey Mysterio mask, and then you've got green jelly shit all around your face.
No, that was suntan lotion. That was
suntan lotion.
Yeah, like sun protection. Yeah. So now with retrospect,
from the water. Has this been doing backstroke? I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, got you.
So with retrospect, I am aware that would have been quite haunting for a school trip.
Fucking hell, man.
But that one probably wasn't as bad. I think we've just been talking about this, haven't we, off air? But injury-wise, I think as I come to the grand old age of 40 years old, it's really interesting
you're never 40.
Yeah. Oh well, this year I will be.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I always find it weird that I'm so much older than you.
40, yeah.
Oh, thank
you.
you.
That's amazing.
But it's weird how now, and we're seeing it with a lot of athletes. I think previously it would have been a bit of a death sentence for your career past 35. But now you're seeing LeBron. There was an awesome video the other day when he turned 30. Someone tweeted and said, thank God LeBron's 30. He's, not going to be terrorizing the NBA for much longer. Now he's getting to 40. And that person saw that tweet and had been forced to tweet again going, now he's 40. It can't be much longer. And it's so interesting with Cristiano Ronaldo. Messi's not ruling out another World Cup, I don't think. Kipchoge. It's so interesting now that older athletes...
Well, we were on about this earlier, and I think with the technologies and the research and the doctors that are getting involved with athletes now, specifically hormone therapy. You are giving guys in the 30s and 40s hormones that they're producing in the 20s. There's a bit of a grey area on this of whether it's right, wrong, whatever. But I think, if you've got the opportunity to put something in your body to progress yourself, make yourself healthier, make yourself live longer, make yourself just like a better life in general, screw the sport. Like, why would you not do that?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's getting interesting now, isn't it? Like
it is.
And I think as technology develops so much, it's interesting seeing what is and what isn't allowed. In WADA sports, for instance, like stem cells. So I've just had stem cells, for instance, in my shoulder. And it's so interesting how that's not trying to gain a advantage over anyone. It's just trying to keep in the game, keep swimming. So the cartilage is completely worn away. So they were like, the only way that we can do that is a hydrogel. So you've got your AC joint. Hydrogel goes around and almost forms like a scaffold. And then the Muse stem cells go in. So there's been some good studies, like objective studies, not just anecdotal ones, about the regrowing of cartilage. And I'm hoping that that's what we can do with mine. And I think if we do, we extend my career. And if not, I'll look back and just go, well, I did get a trident.
Fair enough. Just look at some of your other accomplishments here. So you got the Yukon swim. You climbed Everest. So you did a rope climb, the height of Everest. Was that just like a normal rope in a gym?
Yeah.
Or?
Oh, it was weird actually. So it was Toughest, which was Sweden's biggest obstacle course. And they were coming over to the UK and they do amazing things for cancer charities. And they were like, look, we want to do something. It's our first event, kind of like a big sporting spectacle to raise money. And I just went, I'll climb a rope repeatedly until I climbed the height of Everest. So it was a 20-meter rope. And they were like, well, we're setting up early. So you just turn up at the event early and do it. And I said, oh, okay then. So we just rocked up and
How long did that take you?
Oh, it was like 19 hours.
Non-stop. That's crazy.
Yeah, it worked out for 20 meters. And I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's something like 20 meters every minute on the minute. So if you get up quickly, you'd have like 25 seconds between. So you're up, and then shake off. Okay, any sort of adjustment to your gloves, quickly eat something and then disappear. And if you do that for 19 hours.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Did your hands blister? And
Oh, it was so bad. Yeah.
Wow.
That was worse. I left so much of my skin on that rope.
when you drop down, do you slide down the rope as well? But your inside legs were...
It's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when fatigue was like really setting on the first few, my dismount was just perfect, down the rope and everything. But when you're so fatigued, because we're only
you
counting...
just want to let go.
For sure, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's a really weird, going back to the inner bitch psychobiological model of fatigue, it was so interesting that during, I want to say like 15 hours in, you'd get up and you've made a deal with yourself. It's a non-negotiable. You're like, I'm finishing this. Like, it's getting done. However we get it done, we get it done. So I disappear to the top and I'm 20 meters at the top and I'll just sort of go, I can slide down here, but that rips more skin off. Or I could jump down, but that's probably not going to be good for my knees, ligaments, and just my body in general. Yeah. And it's that conversation that you're having in your head that is so hard for some people to understand, but yourself, Rico, people.
That's ridiculous. I mean, me, myself, I couldn't climb a 20-meter rope once.
Yeah, but you're exactly two of me.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
This goes back, when we did that obstacle course, because people didn't understand what was going on there. When you passed, do you remember the army course that we did down at Manley-Mere?
Yeah, I didn't pass it, did I?
You passed some of them.
I passed some of them. Yeah, I think the running was a little slack.
But what I keep on saying this, I don't think people quite understand. It would have been like me doing everything we did that day with me attached to my back.
Yeah, with another 90 kilo. I think it was 175 kilo at the time.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, and I think it was amazing seeing some of the comments on that, because I think sometimes it's hard to put into context exactly what was going on. Where people say, "Oh, what was his running time?" It's like, well, put someone else on your back, and that's the equivalent. Yeah.
It's that was a tough day, Ross. I'll be honest. It was a tough day. I think there's one point in the video my lips actually turned blue.
Oh, that was the ice swimming, wasn't it?
No, that was the run.
Oh no, it was. Yeah,
It was the fucking run.
Was that when we hung out in Budgie Smugglers all day?
Yeah.
That was good.
That was good.
Good times.
Swimming the channel, towing a log, and if you ran a marathon with a 100-pound log as well.
Yeah,
which was harder.
That was weird, actually. Yeah. So I wanted to initially swim across the English Channel, towing a log, because we were doing a lot for combating deforestation in Borneo. It was with Chester Zoo, an amazing charity, and so the log driftwood was just sort of symbolic of that. And so initially I wanted to swim across the English Channel, and I'll never forget this conversation. I rung up the various authorities, Doverport, everybody, and I had to sort of say, look, I want to swim across. I wish I'd recorded this conversation to this day. And I rung up and I said, hi, I want to swim across the English Channel. And they said, well, it's not a problem at all. That is quite common. I can put you in contact with the relevant people and authorities and the swimming organisations. I said, thank you so much. But sorry, before you do, I just want to say, I want to do it towing a 100-pound tree. And it went completely silent on the phone. And this guy down the other end of the phone just went, but you can't. And I went, why not? And he goes, well, you're not a registered vessel. So which I responded, well, how do I become a registered vessel? And then he hung up on me. So we couldn't do the English Channel in the end because I wasn't a registered vessel. Okay. But then we spoke to the Caribbean Tourism Board and they were like, look, just come out here. So we ended up trying it between Martinique and St. Lucia.
Gotcha. I got it mixed up.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then running with a marathon with 100-pound
was part of a triathlon that I did with the 100-pound tree as well. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which was good. It was on Nevis, amazing Caribbean island. It wanted to become carbon neutral by, I think it was 2030. An amazing island. Like, just what they do for ocean conservation is brilliant. And they just said, look, Ross, if you're going to make a sporting spectacle of yourself to raise awareness around this fact, you can have a free place to this triathlon. I said, okay, fantastic. And there was legitimate athletes, really, really good athletes, all on the start line. And then I just turned up on the beach, ready to start the swim, with a tree attached to my trunks. And I'm like, what is this? And then I actually stayed at the back as well because I didn't want to hit anyone with the tree. But then I ended up overtaking people on the swim. One guy was like, "No, he's got a tree." So I went back. It was good. I didn't come last. I didn't actually come last.
That'd be pretty sad, that would. Entering a race and someone overtaking you with a tree. That'd be a pretty down point in my life. Yeah. I'd probably drop off a few logs doing a marathon myself.
But you know what's
Not
weird?
quite £100, but pretty heavy.
I saw, because it's been a year, 2 years since we caught up last, since we were filming.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
So in that time, you have probably one of the most viral knockouts probably ever, certainly that year, where you decided to take on 2 men at once.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It was good fun, that
It was good
It was
fun.
good fun.
Competed on the biggest stage in terms of arm wrestling, you and Brian Shaw.
Yeah.
As well as all the presenting and YouTube various things. I saw a comment, and this was so good when you did the arm wrestling, and they just went, "Eddie is just doing side quests now."
That's all I do.
It's true.
It's all I do. I've completed life. You know, the winning the world's strongest man and the 500 kilo deadlift was my it. Anything else is a bonus.
It's true. And I said this to you ages ago because what I love, one of my favorite videos of yours recently was the sumo wrestling with legitimate sumo wrestlers, people who have been doing it ages. And for me, as a sports scientist, the reason I loved it so much is because you saw the evolution of you as a sumo wrestler just throughout an hour, 2 hours, which was crazy. So I think what's amazing at looking at all of those is as you do sit on this genetic potential and you're still at an age where you could excel in pretty much anything, are you just like so happy what you've done? Is there an itch to do something competitive in something else? Or are you just going to continue doing side quests?
I mean, I love doing the side quests, if I'm being completely honest. You know, just buying tanks and running shit over and whatever else. But I think, is there anything? I've got no admiration to be number one in the world at anything ever again.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like,
Right,
You know, I don't want to go into arm wrestling and be number one. I don't want to go into MMA and be number one. But I think it's important in life that you have a goal.
Yeah.
And when you achieve that goal, it's important you take your foot off the gas, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. And that's the difference between a man and a great man, in my opinion, is having the ability to see around you what's important, and that's family, mate. And for me, that's my main life quest at the minute, is building family and building that bond. And anything else is all these side quests are just bonuses, you know? That's.
So what does, because I love what you just said there, and we've spoke about it before, haven't we, with Viktor Frankl, you know, the meaning of life is to give life meaning. And, you know, Jordan Peterson saying, you know, that the purpose in life is to pick up the heaviest load you can and carry it. So you always need a load, a boulder, something to carry. You flip between a few different things, don't you, from MMA, arm wrestling. What does that boulder look like now for you? And what does success look like if it's not to be world number one? I think I know what it might be, but I wanted to hear it from you.
What are you asking me?
So if there's a sport that you wanted to go into, and what would success look like? For instance, how viral, you know, when with the knockout, almost killed. That went so viral. So
can we pull that clip up? I want to see it again. It's one of my favorite clips. So my plan was to pick one up, slam him down, and then pick the other one up and slam him on top of him.
So you were going to beat one of them up with the other one.
And I said that publicly quite a few times. I was going to beat one with the other one. That's what I said was going to happen. And so I picked one of them up, slammed him down. I thought, right. And this little fucker was here. I was like, perfect. Going to pick this fucker up. And as I was trying to pick him up, he just sort of like glued to my leg like a little koala. I was like, you little fucker. And then it's in my peripheral vision. Just saw him just stand up, and I was like, hello? And then he just sort of ran in. It was like he was going to give me a kiss, just like boom. It's fucking perfect. Absolutely perfect. But it brings me on to like, Ross, why the fuck did you get into the stuff you did? My little research buddies here tell me that your dad was a tennis coach.
Yeah.
And your mum was a runner, or was it the other way around?
Yeah.
Was a sprinter.
Spot on. Yeah.
So you've grown up in an athletic household. What inspired you to then jump in the water and swim until you fucking drown and get covered in jellyfish?
Do you know what? It is such a good question, just because I think so often people will link childhood trauma to ultra endurance events. You know, people are so often running away from something or anything. I had an amazing childhood. It was awesome. Got 2 brothers. Loved my mum and dad. They were together. I want to say they celebrated their 40-year anniversary actually before my dad actually passed away. But
I'm sorry to hear, mate.
Yeah, like but growing up, just that amazing. So I think it's and it's good now. So it's been 2 or 3 years actually since my dad passed away. So now I can talk about it fondly. I know, you've lost people.
Yeah.
It takes a while, and then now you can actually reflect. I can go down the tennis club. My dad was a tennis coach, built tennis centers and stuff, and I can go down there now, and it's amazing. Like, kids will come up to me and be like, "Oh my God, Dad created this tennis center. I wouldn't have even been playing if it wasn't for him." And I'm like, "Oh my God!" So it's now I can talk about it without getting choked up. So that's what's really nice. And I think one of the biggest things was also my granddad's as well. So growing up, I loved sport, but also as well, I loved the heroic age of Antarctic exploration. So this was a period where the world was just obsessed with getting to Antarctica. And you had these heroes like Roald Amundsen, Robert Falcon Scott, Shackleton. And hearing stories about these people, I was just like, that's unbelievable. So I think it's interesting how I took swimming, but then was so inspired by the heroic age of Antarctic exploration. So famously, there was the race to the South Pole. And there was a guy, Amundsen, who was Norwegian, and he was crazy efficient. He knew everything about Arctic exploration. And it was so interesting that when he rocked up, he turned up with dogs, for instance. He had sled dogs because he'd learned that they were amazing. Whereas Robert Falcon Scott turned up, brought ponies that fell through the ice. Right. And then they had like mechanical snow skis and they started breaking down. Whereas dogs, you can just rely on them. So it was interesting how Robert Falcon Scott managed to get to the South Pole. And even when he got there, he looked at the dogs and he was like, right, we've now got a certain amount to get home. I only need a certain amount to get back so I can eat them. And start eating them until I get... Yeah, so it was that sort of efficiency. Wow. Brutal efficiency. Whereas it was interesting with Robert Falcon Scott, who famously actually perished on the South Pole expedition, but the British sort of public were like, oh yeah, but Amundsen's eating his dogs. That's very ungentlemanly, like, he's not doing it properly. Whereas Robert Falcon Scott ended up going, and then on the way back, didn't actually make it back because of all these kind of mishaps and kind of didn't really understand the terrain. So it's been really interesting learning stories like that now, that going forward with the Yukon, I'm trying to be more Amundsen, that efficient. I'm not eating dogs, but there's that sort of efficiency that I think, that heroic age of Antarctic exploration needed. Yeah.
So how did is this school? Where do you learn about these people?
Just my granddad and my dad were just like such historians. Like they'd always tell stories.
So you'd sit around and instead of reading bedtime stories, you got told down. Guys are eating the dogs.
Yeah, genuinely. But yeah, like Roger Bannister, the 4-minute mile. Again, like I grew up, my granddad, he was a marathon runner. So he loved Roger Bannister. And he would tell me stories about, at the time, leading physicians would say, you cannot run under a 4-minute mile. It's not possible.
Yeah, I've heard all that shit before.
100%. And I think that's why long before, we were actually, training together and stuff, I was, and before we became friends, I was a fan for so long. And it was so interesting because for me, the 500 kilo deadlift, with all the noise around it at the time, I remember chatting to my granddad and my dad, and we all just agreed. They were like, this just feels like the 4-minute mile. It's the same. Because everyone, even like fellow strongmen, were just going, it's just not possible. Was it 465 was the previous, which you'd pulled?
463.
463
was the world record,
So everyone was like, you can't do that. That's like running 10:01, and then saying, oh, we're going to just get below 10 seconds and then going like 8.3. They were like, the difference as a percentage makes no sense. And that's why, like I said, I loved growing up with the heroic Antarctic exploration, Roger Bannister, but then equally, genuinely, what you did was Roger Bannister. It was ridiculous.
Thank you. So bedtime stories and from dad and granddad inspired you to grow up and become a fucking, what can I describe as a nutcase?
But it is weird how, so many things have to go right to produce an athlete like that. I think that's what's so strange. And I think it was the same with you in so many ways, because you went down swimming for so long, didn't you? You were pushed down that route. And then it was 15, 14, 15, when you just went, no, I'm not going to swim anymore.
About 13, yeah.
13. But then you had the right people around you that you just went into strength training as well. You have to have that network to actually produce an athlete like that, I think.
No, you do. And I think, where does it stem from? Like people like me and you go and do these feats that are just deemed impossible. You know, winning the world's strongest man, the 500 kilo deadlift, swimming around Great Britain, doing the Yukon swim. They're equally as great as each other, in my opinion. Where does it stem from? Like for me, I had a hard upbringing. I'll be brutally honest. It was not in terms of money. Like I think we were okay. You know, I've seen my mum and dad struggle, but I think I just had a punishing upbringing. Like my brothers were fucking horrible to me. Like the youngest of two brothers, but they were vicious. Like I was punched in the face daily. You know, if I did something wrong, it was hard just surviving in my house. And I'm being brutally honest there. It was a real tough upbringing. And I think that nature of always being punched and kicked to the bottom of the pile and always having that, you know, if there's a pizza on the table, you always got the fucking crusts, you know, and it just being treated like that for so long really made me want to thrive and almost be better than my brothers in a way. For me, it was so competitive. Like when we went swimming together, I'd had to beat my brothers. That nothing else mattered in life. Like I would eat, sleep, train and shit, repeat at 5 years of age just to beat my fucking brothers. That's how much I fucking hated them. And then you sort of grow up, and that competitive nature is what got me into strength sports, from the swimming into strength sports, bodybuilding, whatever else. And it's still instilled in me today. What was it with you? I mean, you had something. Sounds of things had a nice upbringing. Your parents are still together, which was absolutely amazing. My parents are still together, and I think that's done me a world of wonders. With my family, I think it teaches you some great attributes having parents that are still together. But where was there any toughness in your upbringing? There's got to be something that triggered this in you. Was it just creativity in your mind, just set dreaming at night, or did something?
Do you know what? And I get asked this a lot because there genuinely wasn't. I had an amazing, from Grantham. It's in Lincolnshire. Really rural, like nice, very green town.
Yeah.
I can't even say it was like the rough streets of Grantham. It's really nice in Grantham. For me, it was interesting what you said there. I think it's just creativity, I think, and just like boundless kind of enthusiasm and optimism. That it comes from a slightly different place, I think, with me. And I think what's interesting as well on that note is I find that slightly more sustaining because I'm a big fan of David Goggins, and his psychology absolutely works for him. You see the results, it works. So he talks about his inner bitch and he tells himself, stop being so lazy, get out of bed, all this. And it works. But I find, talking about psychology, but also almost like hormonally, that you're probably just redlining, that's cortisol. It's a lot of negative talk. And I'm like, how long can you sustain that? Maybe forever, maybe. But for me, I just find that gratitude is a better fuel, for want of a better term. It's almost like, you're putting diesel into a car or petrol, like which one? And some people might just want, just negative talk, lift that weight, stop, get out of bed, whereas I just find I'll wake up and just be like, right, my tongue's falling off, I'm chafing and I soiled myself in my wetsuit, but what a sunrise. It's amazing that I get to do this. Like that's pretty cool. In my head, I'm like, this is just like Shackleton. This is just like Admonson standing there on the South Pole. It might not be. I'm standing there with my, wetsuit heavily soiled. But in my head, I'm like, this is amazing. I'm going to be able to tell my grandkids about this. This is amazing. So I've just found, and I have tried the other side, but you can imagine if that came out of my mouth, if we go and train later and I go, come on, Ross, stop being such a fucking pussy. It just wouldn't even sound right coming out of my mouth. Yeah. So I've just found that gratitude is so much more sustaining. And I think on the Yukon swim, for instance, and I'm going to try to tell this story without getting too choked up, but there was the team out in Canada. So I reached out to them and they do River Quest, which is a famous kayaking race down the Yukon. And I just said, well, look, if you can kayak it, you can swim it. And they were like, yeah, in theory, if you can avoid bears, whitewater rapids, yeah, in theory. I was like, okay, cool, in theory, that's all I need. So then I got chatting to this team out there, and they were just like, look, Ross, cover the cost of the fuel, and get the beers at the end, and we've got a deal. Like, just amazing people, just you can imagine, just salt of the earth, incredible. But there was a family on there as well, and there was a guy, Larry, and oh my God, he still had, I only knew him for those 60 hours or the week that I was there, but he's had such a profound impact on me and just my sense of gratitude going forward for all swims. So I didn't realize at the time, but we're all sat around and we're doing a medical, and they said, just put your hand up. The Dr. Tom said, put your hand up if there's any medical conditions that I should know about. If there's anything, if you get, sunstroke or, anything that I need to be aware of. Larry basically had stage 4 cancer. It was terminal. He had months to live.
Wow.
Months. And all medical advice, everybody said, you cannot go on this expedition, Larry. This is a terrible idea. If anything goes wrong, that is game over. Like, you need to be in medical care. You need to be close to a hospital. And he turned to everybody. His just spirit and zest for life, he turned to everybody. He said, I completely understand what you're saying, and I'm so respectful, and I appreciate all you've done in terms of medical, but they need my boat and I'll be on it. And so he just turned up, and for 70 hours throughout the entire swim, I remember just swimming day and night. And I could, as I breathe, that's all I see, because I see the bottom of the river and then I see the boats and their silhouette. And for 70 hours, Larry was just there on his boat. And if I stopped to have a banana or anything like that, I looked over, he would just shout, and he'd be like, let's keep going. And I was like, oh my God, if I ever want to feel sorry for myself, like, oh God, I'm chafing, I'm like, you have no right to do that, Ross, because there's a guy over there who's terminally ill, who they say he shouldn't be on this. We finished the entire thing. Larry came over to me, and his son as well, who's amazing, Eric, and he just came over and said, Ross, I don't think you quite realised, this was the one last great adventure. Larry grew up on this river. He's done River Quest every single year. This is probably going to be the last one, and what a memory we have. And so we went for burgers, which I'm looking over, Larry's just he's laughing, he's joking. Just an amazing human. So that, for me, going forward, I'm always just like genuinely, what would Larry do? And it was a few weeks ago now, or probably more, a few months ago, but he genuinely did have a few months. And we lost him a few months ago now.
Wow.
Yeah. And I just remember, I was just like, oh my God, just an immense human. Yeah. If he can do that, then I'm not really suffering too much. You know what I mean?
I like your philosophy there is the gratitude. So no matter how bad you think you've got it, you're always happy to be in the moment, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because there's so much worse out there.
Yeah.
I like that.
That is exactly it. I think you can do that at any given point. You're given a choice there. So I could have, in that moment, cursed and told myself to just man up and everything. And that might have worked, absolutely. And I think some people use that. But for me, I would just turn and just see Larry and just go, I just don't need to curse. I don't need, and he would just be like, he had the best laugh and the best smile. He'd be like, let's keep going. And I was just like, oh my God, yeah. So yeah, I've not told many people that story, but it was, they were amazing. And I'm glad I managed to get through that story without getting choked up. But wow. he was, you get to meet people like that who you just think, that's not to sound too morbid or anything like that, but I'm like, that's how I want to go.
That's it's a really nice sentiment, that is, Ross, that, you're sort of just living in the moment, and so much gratitude for everything. What's next? What's next for Ross? What's future adventures?
Yeah.
If there's a bucket list of swims, what would that look like?
I'm still just infatuated with the longest swims, so with those parameters, I want to keep swimming.
Distance or time?
Both. Okay. Yeah. I think
okay.
When all is said and done, and I'm 80 years old, sitting there in my budgie smugglers, I just want to be like, here's a list. I mean, you the same with yourself, your accolades, but the stories attached to them. I just want to be rich in stories.
So what's a bucket list? If there's a swim around the world, you're going to say no.
We did the maths before, didn't we? We looked at that.
No, we did. Yes, we did. So
yeah.
Hang on, where's my phone? So how many kilometers can you swim a day?
I've looked into it. I think comfortably sustaining it for years. I think you could tuck away 50k a day.
You could do 50k a day.
Yeah.
And the world is 33,000 kilometers roughly.
Right. So how long is that going to take?
Divided by 50.
Yeah.
Okay, that's 660 days.
Doesn't seem
Divided by
too
365.
bad.
So that's 1.8 years.
That doesn't seem too bad. Yeah, I don't
Would
know.
you
if
take that on?
I don't know if I'd get that past the girlfriend.
Fucking hell.
I'm just going for a swim. Come on.
Fucking hell. Yeah.
No, there's other ones. I think when you start looking into rivers, lakes,
The boat would break down before you did.
it gets really interesting. I think there's a few different ones. When you start adding parameters like lakes and things like that, I think it gets real interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. So with that in mind, Ross, I mean, swimming around the world would just be, that would be a 600 kilo deadlift. That'd be fucking insane. But how'd you pick your next challenge? Like what inspires you to?
This is going to sound weird. I literally have like a massive list. If you say anywhere in the world, I've probably got a swim that I want to do there. And I think that's what kind of happens with a lot of swims. So when I did the recent documentary with National Geographic and Disney, they were just like, Ross, you know, we'd love it if you could compete with a shark. And I was like, yeah, I've got loads of ideas. So we just listed a load of ideas. If somebody turned around to me and said, we need to do something in Egypt, I'll be like, I always wanted to do something in the Nile. Do you know what I mean? There's
really?
For
The
sure.
Nile?
For sure. Like the history then.
You want to go and swim in the fucking
Yeah,
Nile? You're ill.
No,
There's something wrong with you.
But
Mentally, you're fucking ill,
putting
mate.
like crocodile syphilis aside,
I wouldn't put my worst enemy in that fucking river. You dirty bastard.
So genuinely, yeah, it's amazing when a charity comes to me, like we did loads with Talisker Whiskey and Parlay, Ocean Conservation Charity, and they were like, look, we need to do something to raise awareness around the sea kelp forest in Scotland. I was like, again, I've got an idea.
And what was that idea?
Well, that was the Loch Ness that ended up in hospital.
Okay.
So it wasn't a good idea.
So the Yukon, have you ever like swam through a country as in rivers?
No, we had to start stopping it early. We had a conversation on the boat because I was going into Alaska. So at some point, I think someone would have stopped me and gone, sorry, what's he doing? And I was like,
where's your visa?
Exactly.
You're crossing countries.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe revisiting the Yukon, but as long as I can speak to, Donald Trump and get safe passage into Alaska, I could have kept going.
What about your legacy, Ross? Like your legacy, what do you want to leave behind?
Oh, that's a good question. I think just a bunch of really cool stories. I don't know, that sounds weird. I just love it if my grandkids, and in a small circle as well, but just like my grandkids just go, are you aware what my granddad did? You know, with bears, sharks. He didn't want to do the Nile because Eddie wouldn't let him. But just being...
Your grandkids would be like, dirty bastard. Fucking dirty. He's from the fucking Nile. What a dirty bastard.
But just taking on swims that people just said, well, that's just ridiculous, you know. So I think that's what it is. Yeah, just a zest and thirst for adventure. That would be really cool.
Well, nice, man. Well, I can definitely say that I will have some stories to tell from my experience with you, and seeing what you've done. I'll be telling my grandkids all about you, man. So your legacy's there. Your legacy's there already.
You legend.
Definitely. Right, that about sums up this week's episode with Ross Edgley. And I think Ross you're basically just a beast in his own nature. You know, I'm a beast in strength. You're a beast in endurance. It's absolutely insane and inspiring what you've done. Some of your feats, like swimming around Great Britain and the Yukon swim, are just absolutely incredible. Like, hand on heart, mate. It's something I'm proud to say I'm your friend. You're a beast in your own right, and we're very blessed to have you on the show. So
you're a legend. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, mate. Thank you.
Best of luck with all the future mad shit you, but stay the fuck away from the Nile.